I went to, Columbia's right up the street from where I live. So I went to Columbia, marched to the State House yesterday. Everything was all good, during the first part of the protest. Cool. So I left, and, when everything started popping off later on that evening, my mom's watching the news. She texts me, stay your ass where you at. Like, you know what I'm saying? My mama's a 70-year-old woman, 30 plus year old man. My mama's still worrying about me in regards to that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, and I could sit here and say it ain't fair. No, it's not fair, man. But it's just like, it's the reality. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my mama going in her old age, and she still got to worry about me, a grown man. So like, it's just
heartbreaking.
It's definitely different, right? Yeah, man.
Heartbreaking, man.
It's never a break, dude. It's like.
That's how I'm gonna rap on this for y'all.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Okay. Dummies discuss. Dummies. People like what's all the fuss. Dummies. You about to miss the bus. Dummies. And we're trying not to cuss. So this is two friends that kinda smart but really dummies. Talking ish and never stopping like the Energizer Bunny. He thinks he can get a yard, he has delusions, he's a star. Chance is addicted to Star Trap and Captain John-Luc Picard. His plate is full of a little like your old grandmother's stuff. And the others know so old school like David Ruffin. Shouts out to all the betas. Shouts out to my boy Jared. Hottest podcast up and coming. If you like it, go and share it. Dummies discuss. Dummies. People like what's all the fuss. Dummies. You about to miss the bus. Dummies. And we're trying not to cuss.
Yeah, man. Internet issue started.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, it's on that end. Real quick, did you guys see the protests in London?
Nah,
they're protesting.
I seen it been all over the place. I ain't see that one.
Yeah, I saw they were doing it in London, which was kind of dope.
I tried to pull up live feed. You were saying also like in Dublin, Ireland, but I couldn't find any live feed for it.
They stopped traffic over in London, man.
Yeah. Yep, they was getting arrested out there. That's what I was asking you earlier about, Chance, that Marion Square. Like, they were just arresting folk out there, man.
I tried to look it up. I couldn't find it. I was trying to find it. Yeah.
I heard I haven't seen the footage from South Africa, but supposedly in South Africa, they're doing the same thing. So that's kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, cool that this is getting international, attention, and people across the world are like protesting too. But I was trying to remember if other countries did that for, like, Ferguson or Mike Brown or anything. Do y'all remember any?
I think they did. I think they went out and protested. I don't think anything out there got violent, but I think across, in other countries, they protested.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They did a little bit, and I don't know about other countries, but they did a little bit around the nation for Mike Brown. It didn't get as bad. There was some minor property damage here and there in some countries. I think the differences was like, there was always quote unquote questions around those. This one, it's like, okay, ain't no questions.
Right. Yeah. Like me and my boys were talking about it, man. This one a little different, man. For it's like it's blatant. You know what I'm like? Dude not resisting. That video is terrible to watch. You know what I'm saying? And dude just sat there, and it was almost like not a smirk, but like it looked like he just felt like
he knew he was good.
Like,
he knew he was good. He knew he was good.
Yep.
You guys see? They just announced the two. I don't know if you saw the young man and the young girl that got pulled out of the car last night.
Yeah.
They just fired the two officers that pulled them out of the car for excessive force.
Yep. Keisha Lance Bottom, she came out and talked about that, man, and said, and the chief, and said, look, like we knew those officers are good people. I think they worked in the department for like 15 years for one of them, and the other one was 22 years. Mm-hmm. But they were like, but we're serious about this. If we're going to go out here and protest and about police brutality, then we're going to have to live by that same accord. You know what I mean? So they let them go, which is, I mean, good. Millicent, you know, she told me, she said that's the difference between having like a black mayor and somebody else. Like black mayor ain't playing that. Like Keisha's not playing yesterday.
Yeah, you gotta get it wrong. Yeah. Like, but it gotta be like that, dog. Like, and see what's crazy, man. Like even I don't know if y'all watched the Atlanta child murders documentary on HBO.
Hey, Will, bring your screen.
You need me to come up?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Sitting back
We're catching you from right here. There you go.
All right, I'm good now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like, and it was talking about you know how, you know, on the outside looking in, everybody thinks Atlanta's like this huge black city, which it is. You know what I'm saying? But you know, prior to that, and like, you know, that documentary kind of spoke on like how white the force was back in the day, and like it's still some of those ties, man. Like this, like Atlanta's a great city, man, but it's like it's still, you know, it's still a southern city, dude. Like,
I think the pandemic is the difference between this and everybody and all the other killings we've seen. And I really mean that. I think the pandemic is the only thing that's different about this. When I watched Philando Castile die on Facebook Live, right, and I saw him take his last breaths, I heard the girl in the back of the car saying, "Mommy, it's okay. Mommy, it's okay," trying to pacify the mom that was in the front and, you know, the driver or whatever. Like, that still leaves a psychological impression on me right now. I could still see that image in my head. And I was ready on that day. Like, well, first off, I was scared as hell to leave the house then. Like, it really scared me. You know what I'm saying? But it also left this impression where that's what I'm going to dedicate my life to. And I'm going to do this, you know, fight for social justice. Started Awake and everything. We've been doing, you know, we did that. We went out in the streets hard and we had forums. We talked to people. We worked with churches. We did a voter registration drive. We was all about it for about 6 months. And then people just kind of got back to their status quo life. You know what I mean? And so I hear people keep saying, this one's different though. This one's different. This one's different. I don't see how this one is any different than Philando Castile. You know, now I understand that we don't know everything that led up to the Philando Castile shooting. But at the same time, we saw a man get shot in his car for being a legal gun owner and died on camera. Like, it's almost, I'm gonna say something very unpopular. It's almost like we're giving too much credit to this murder, and it's almost taken away from all the other murders we've seen of black unarmed men. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how this is any different than all the other ones, and it almost irks me that we're saying that this one is different. So
for me,
Jay, what were you going? Go ahead, Will.
Well, I think in saying it's different, I think that the awareness is different just because, and like you said, the pandemic forcing folks to be in the house. For one, more people watching the news, trying to keep up with that disease, you know, and then, you know, it's like back to back, like, just like that's all that's on, man. Like, it is like in this time, even since, you know, the country kind of slowed down, like what good news have y'all seen on the news?
True.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just more of that. But you know, that's just my thing. But I can definitely agree with you, man. Like, I get it. I never thought about it from that perspective, but like in terms of me saying why it's different, I think that's just more people are seeing it.
Yeah, but I think, and that's what I was meaning too, is that I think this is because of the pandemic. Right. You know what I mean? Because people are forced to be in their house. They're bored as hell. They ain't got nothing else to do. So they're on social media. They're watching, you know, the news, etc. So it feels like we're getting more coverage of this. More people are, you know what? Last night I watched some looting going on in Philadelphia. All right, city of brotherly love, and I couldn't help but think, like, the timing of this was so bad because now everybody was outside in a mask. And I think that's why people felt more emboldened to go out and like start tearing stuff up. because it's now everybody has a mask on. I could fit in real easily. I could break this window and run away, and now I have a mask on just like everybody else around me. I'm hiding my face, etc. Me and Chance talked about it, right? We were saying that like at Pebblebrook, we would always know the kids that were about to do something bad because when you looked on the camera, they had their hoodies on and they tied it. They took the strings and tied it real tight. You'd be like, oh, they're trying to hide their face. They're about to do something bad. But now everybody has that hoodie on and those strings tied with this mask, and they're just running around the street. And I feel like that's why we're seeing so much fire in these cities. That's why we're seeing so much destruction is because of the pandemic, man. I think that's the only difference in my eyes of what's going on. But I really want, Jay, what do you think, man? Because I know we kind of, again, informally, we talked about this.
I think it's a lot of things, man. I think you're right on with the pandemic. People are ready to burst out of everything. I think pandemic goes into the fact that it's 2020. America, and not almost every household in America, even the wealthy ones and ones in good health, have seen some sort of life change. This is what we're going through with this pandemic is one of those things that makes the difference between generations, almost like 9/11. You don't see this. You know what I mean? It's something you read about in history books. So then Black America in itself, during this first quarter and going into the second quarter of 2020 has been, the pandemic's been different for us with healthcare, with higher deaths, we're already separated socioeconomically. So the pandemic hits those households even harder. And then you've got we lost beloved famous ones, Kobe, a list of singers, and then it's right on the heels of Ahmaud Arbery and the fact that the country was up in arms about that. But I think it's also different. It is really different from the other killings, not in the comparison of the injustice, but our response to, because I'll hold to this. And before I go into that, I'll say your work with Awake and other people's work like that, it wasn't all for naught because it made people more conscious. And when you make people more conscious, you're breaking down their sensory, where you're taking away that level of desensitization where they're like, okay, now I feel this one and I feel a little bit more. You made people aware so that it hits them differently. Or if it didn't hit them differently, they understand how it hits the next person. So now every one of them mounts. But then the difference between all of them is no matter what you feel about those previous ones, whether you agree with them, thought they were justified, not justified, no matter what, most people didn't see the time while Philando Castile took his last breath on camera. We weren't there for the shot. Mike Brown's wasn't there. There were so many questions about Mike Brown's. Come to find out, the people who said hands up, don't shoot, one of them lied, the other one said, well, I just said it because he said it. Then the other people were like, well, hands up, don't shoot. I thought the first set of shots took place in the car. And then you had you go back to Trayvon. Well, he could do this. The arguments of that ensue when you're not an eyewitness from everything that you need to see to determine whether or not it's a right or a wrong. And with this one, man, to me, I think the only one that I'm like, why are we not up on that's truly comparable is Eric Garner. Like, as a child, I don't understand. I had to have had them been in the grand jury room to understand how they didn't follow through with charges. Mind you, grand jury is made up of random people. It's made up of a room of New Yorkers. And so I don't know what happened there because nobody, any police department is trained to put an arm around someone's neck unless it's a deadly force situation. But so to me, if any one of them is comparable, it's that one.
Yeah.
But other than that, I see why they're saying it's different.
Not to interrupt you. So that the hold for Eric Garner, the hold that the cop had him in, that's you're kind of trained not to ever do that unless it's like
a deadly force situation. Not even a sleeper hold, man.
So is there
be a deadly force situation?
Okay, so I'm really ignorant about it. Is there a difference between like a sleeper hold and the hold he was doing? Like, I just, when I see somebody put their arm around somebody's neck, I just think, oh, that's a sleeper hold or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, see, sleeper hold is designed to put pressure on the carotid artery, and that's what makes you pass out.
Okay.
A chokehold is designed to put pressure on the larynx, and that's what makes you not be able to breathe.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if you don't know what you're doing or in the height of a moment of a situation, you can easily do one while you're trying to do the other. So that's why you just stay away from it.
Got you. Okay.
Jay, do you feel like it's – I feel this time that more police officers are actually speaking out, whether individually on social media or, you know, heads of departments like the Chattanooga chief of police the other day came out and said, if you as an officer feel like what happened to George is okay, you need to turn in your badge. Like, do you feel that is different at all, or is that just something we've never seen publicized before?
Little both, actually.
Okay.
Because what has happened is the people who feel that way have said it in the internal state, within the walls. And they didn't do it within the walls because they were ashamed to do it outside the walls. Police officers, by training and by experience, we look at the law differently from everyone else. Not to say better, but we have a little bit more of an insight. We put a lot of emphasis on what you don't see, because we understand there's a certain standard of the Supreme Court that says the totality of the circumstances. So a lot of times as citizens and civilians, we look at something, we see the circumstance. We're not taking in the totality of them. So because we're ingrained in that, we understand the value of what we don't know and how that could change the situation left or right, up or down in any direction. Again, going back to what I said about the last question, this one, we pretty much had the totality of circumstances enough to say, okay, no matter what you say, this is not okay. There's no contradictory evidence you could produce. The other one, you could raise the other ones, even if you still was like, you could still raise some questions of doubt and argument. This one, you cannot possibly raise a question of doubt. So that's why it's like, okay, we can argue about all these other ones all day long, but this is not okay. Not okay. And then what makes it even more not okay was the manner in which it was done. It was done in not only unprofessionally, but that's why third degree murder is probably the most appropriate charge if you read the statute, because it was a depraved indifference to that man's life, even after he was lifeless. And when you take someone into custody, and I say this all the time, that person, and I said this at the awake thing, they become your baby. You are responsible for that well-being the minute you say you're under arrest. So even regardless of everything else, out of your responsibility to have care for the person that you're supposed to be arresting, when you feel that person go lifeless, even if it didn't kick in before they went lifeless, I might kill this person. Which it should have kicked in before there, but even if it didn't, you're supposed to, when you feel them go lifeless, you have, even if you're not human enough to do it, you took an oath to make sure that they're okay.
Right.
And the lack to even do that, to just look at the man, was a depraved indifference to whether or not he lived or died.
Now, is third degree higher than first? I mean, which one's high? Like which one's higher? First?
Yeah, first, second, or higher. The thing is that first, every state has different statutes. And so murder is a state statute. Everybody has, many states don't even have a third degree. You know, it just goes immediately into manslaughter. Everybody's hierarchy and everything is all set up differently. But when you read the statute out there from Minnesota, third degree is the most appropriate charge because that's what actually happened. They also did manslaughter just in case they can't get that one, so they'll have something. Gotcha. But it's the most appropriate, mostly because while we all may feel first and second degree is what he deserved in the court of moral code, he's not going to go to court of moral code. He's going to go to the court of law. And we always have to remember that in the court of law, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. Right. It's not on his burden to prove that he didn't mean to kill him. It's on the burden of the state. And when you look at first degree and second degree, that has a lot to do with criminal intent. Remember that show, Law and Order, Criminal Intent. Yeah. Okay, the easiest way to determine criminal intent is to read someone's mind. Since we can't do that, we have to find other ways. And if you can produce evidence to that person's intent, by all means, make the charge. But if you cannot produce evidence to that intent, then you won't be able to prove it. So they went to the one that they can to prove. We can visually see that he had an indifference to his life. Right. The other things, while they may be true, we can't prove. They can't. It'd be very difficult to prove, and that is why in many cases, I know we wanted an arrest. Make an arrest. What's taking so long? What's taking so long? That's why they took the arrest so long to make. You didn't want to do what happened with the Rodney King officers all over again. If you remember the Rodney King officers, you know, they got found not guilty at first time around. When the federal trial came around, the feds did a deeper investigation. The key thing that happened in that situation was they ran those computers in the car, the mobile terminals. They ran those, the history of those, and they found out that night when they went out for duty, one of the officers said, "Yeah, let's go kick some cans tonight." And you know, cans, Mexicans, Africans, they said, "Let's go kick some cans tonight." Well, that is evidence of your intention to harm people.
Gotcha.
So, and you back it up to this case with Mr. Floyd, rest his soul, with Mr. Floyd. What you want to do is you want to take time to check his cell phone text messages, check his emails. You want to take time to search his computer history. You want to take time to see what kind of internet site he subscribes to. See what kind of interest groups that he's having money going on his credit cards automatic pay to. You want to interview his neighbors, interview his friends, you want to take time to sift through those things thoroughly because you don't want evidence of intentionality to be out there and you missed it because you wanted to satisfy the public's fast arrest.
Gotcha. So you got to do all those things. So that's, you know, when people are like, I need an arrest right away, it's not that simple.
That may not be the best thing.
All right.
You wanna what you'd rather have is a thorough investigation leading to a strong court case than a hasty arrest to satisfy people in a sloppy court case and go back out in the streets again.
What in your opinion, what's going to happen with this one? You think there's going to be a conviction?
Yeah, there's going to be a conviction of some kind. We have to remember, first thing that has to happen is, so these charges that they're bringing against them have to be taken before a grand jury. The grand jury, we have to hope is not stupid. So the grand jury is going to be made up of a bunch of folks from that county. They have to say, okay, you have probable cause to take this to court. And then when they take it to court, they're going to have to try to prove those elements. I think they have a good, strong case to prove those elements. We have to be careful about getting upset at the things we hear. The district attorney was honest when he said there's some evidence that proves it might not have been intentional. Everybody went up in arms. He said that the press kind of was like, what? And what he went back and cleaned it up, and I hope people look at how he went back and cleaned up that statement. What he's saying is basically he's kind of talking about exculpatory evidence, meaning we know we have a good case, but in order to properly present this case to court, you also have to examine any evidence or any evidentiary theories that support his innocence as well.
What can you say what type of evidence that was again?
I don't know what it was. It's pure exculpatory.
Okay.
So what you have to do, and especially the police have to do this to the defense, if you've come across something that might be a valid defense or possible evidence of innocence, even if it doesn't change the situation, you have to give that to the defense. You can't keep it in your pocket. Like, you can't go to a store and let's say I rob a store and they interview me. I rob a store and I'm running out, and and they interview Marvin, and Marvin says, "Yeah, he ran out. That was him. He had on the red hat, some headphones." And they interview you. You say, "Yep, that was him. Had on the red hats." And they're like, "Man, we got the guy. Got some people said it." And then they interview William. William says, "Man, person ran out. He had on a purple shirt." Well, they can't be like, "Well, we got two people that say red shirt, so we got the right one." You can't do that. You have to examine evidence that might point to my innocence as well.
Gotcha. That's good, man. Like, I didn't know any of that. And I think that's important for the viewers that are going to watch this to understand that, because I think everybody, including myself, is just like, why did it take so long for him to get arrested or, or charged? You know what I mean? Like, we wanted immediate gratification. Yeah. We want this to happen right away.
That's totally understandable. But the difference between us now, I think we have the right energy now as far as what it takes to overthrow this oppressive system. Now we have to get the weapons that the old school folks had. Right. And that's up here. And a lot of the old school folks have been coming out. When they didn't just march back in the King days, they knew the law. Like, they knew the statutes. They knew not just with the General Assembly put it in law, but they knew the court cases that changed the law and how it was interpreted and what the legal update was. They had pamphlets, they studied, they went to weekly trainings even when there was no march. So when they got out there in the street, they were armed. That's why they were so disciplined. Mm-hmm. And so I think right now we have the right energy, but we've got to, because we won't be so reactionary to everything if we understand what's being said. Mm-hmm. And we can channel our energy to the right places collectively. You know, so when somebody says third degree, oh my God, third degree, that's too, well, do you know what third degree says and why? Right. If we know that, then we won't waste energy being mad at that. And we can turn our energy to the things that we need to turn to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. It's just like you said, man, it's got to be that charge, you know, we're looking for a conviction, and it's got to be something, you know, we can prove, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm glad, just like Marvin, man, I'm glad you said that, because, you know, most folks don't even know that. Like, I didn't have a clue. And it just makes sense now when folks get, you know, these things have happened in the past, and folks get, you know, they always bring up, well, this kid so-and-so had been in trouble before. And you know, so it makes perfect sense with your explanation now, why that, you know, why they do that, and specifically why these folks beat these cases, man.
Yeah. And one of the major differences, like somebody brought up a very valid question. Well, if you Ray kill Pookie, or if I harm Marvin, God forbid, if I harm Marvin, I'd be in jail right away. But one of the differences is I had no business having my hands on Marvin. If I put my knee on Marvin and choke him out, I had no business touching Marvin. In fact, as soon as my knee came in contact with his neck, that was an assault right there. And everything after that is automatically illegal. We just see how illegal it is. Right. When you have an officer taking someone into custody, you have someone who initially had a legal right to have their hands on them, who had a legal right to use force. So now you have to examine when it became illegal.
Gotcha.
Before you say it's just wrong altogether. So that's sometimes that by itself of this nature is what takes a while.
Same thing there. That's a good explanation, man, because I was victim of that too. I literally last night, I gave the example of, can you imagine, let's say sometimes you see cops will drive through the intersection. They'll turn their lights on, they'll drive through an intersection, and then they turn the lights off and they're just coasting, just driving normally again. And you're looking like, what the hell? Like, I've seen that on a couple of occasions. You're like, he just wanted to he didn't want to wait. He just wanted to go through the intersection, right? That's just me, my ignorance or whatever. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm like, he just literally just didn't want to wait. And so what if some citizens decided, you know, we're going to stop that cop, we're going to follow him, we're going to stop him, we're going to make a citizen's arrest, because he could have put people's lives in danger at that intersection, right? And then people come out, they drag the cop out, and then you would have saw a citizen put their knee on that cop's neck. I asked the question, do you think that that person would have been given 4 days of freedom, you know, after killing a cop? And everybody's like, oh, hell no, absolutely not, absolutely not. You know, so I'm glad you made that distinction, because I never thought about that. There's no need for me to have my hands on Chance or William ever, right? Because that's battery off top.
Off top.
But for an officer who's given that, I guess, by law, given that authority, you have to figure out, okay, was it okay for them to have their hands on that person?
Right, because it started out as a legal arrest, from my understanding.
Right.
It started out as a legal arrest. So the investigation is, what point did it turn illegal? Before, you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so you got to really, and we're just talking about it off the cuff, but the layers upon layers of law and legal precedents that you have to sit through to get something close to clarity on that is a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, anything less than 2 weeks is a rush, to be honest with
you. Yeah. So what do you tell your son? What do you tell your son? How old is he?
Son is 9, man.
Son is 9. What do you tell him? Because you come from you have a different perspective, right? You shared your perspective just now with us, and you enlightened us. What do you talk to your son about, though, being a Black male in America?
You know, as a police officer, I did that job really well. And it was a part of who I am that made me the police officer, but it was a job. Being a Black male and being a father is a part of my very being. And my very being, although I had a good police career, my very being, you would think that I would be great at that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard to imagine that I was even a police officer. Those who know me closely know me as the most revolutionary-minded folks there are. As Will Richardson said, I was the loud Negro inside.
Right.
I sued the police department twice, so I was not the docile Negro at all.
Right.
Even with me being equipped with all the things to say, I haven't had a successful conversation. I probably have the most conversation with him by making him watch the news with me these last couple of days, but I still haven't properly had the conversation at all because it's an unfathomable conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to explain to him that he has to protect people? He has to protect himself from the people that are supposed to protect him.
Yeah.
And for him, it's different because I was a cop when he was born. It's a weird conversation, man. Like 3 months before he was born, I was on the foot chase and somebody fired 6 shots at me.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
So when I look at me risking my life and on one end, and then the life that I love the most, his on the other end, and having to have that conversation and reconcile the two emotionally. So it's the most fucked up conversation you could ever approach in life for me personally.
Yeah. Right.
That's why, to be honest with you, that's why I haven't had it properly. That's why I suck at approaching the conversation and I find myself yelling at him and being most strict with him about his smart mouth. Mm-hmm. Because I'm afraid if I don't get that under control, what might happen to him one day. Mm-hmm. But he gets it from his daddy. I'm still working on what to tell him.
That is a tough one, and
I haven't done a good job in that one.
And I'm gonna ask you next about. I'm sorry, Chance, but
no, you're good. No, one question I have is it can be after this. My question is not tailored to either of the past two topics, but that facial expression is from experiences I've had as a white male dating black women. So when you guys finish talking, I'm going to ask my question.
Okay.
To both of them. It actually fits with this now.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Will, is I forgot where I was going just now, but Will, have you had any conversations with your daughters? And how old are your daughters? I don't want to say their names, obviously, on the podcast. Yeah. I never do that to guests, but how old are your daughters? And have you ever had these kind of conversations with them? And what do those conversations look like?
I got a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. So I have, and for the most part initially, because we didn't just start having these conversations, I started having them because, my ex-wife is white. So my children are mixed. But, growing up where they live in Decatur, Atlanta area, the east side, they're going to identify as, black people, man. So, and they spend a lot of their time with me. So, they see people that look like their dad that's on TV. And, my oldest, me and her having a conversation about a week and a half ago. And for whatever reason, police came up, this is even prior to Floyd. And she was like, well, you're a black man, right? And so, I know they're aware. That made me, I knew that they were aware. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, man. I think, and now saying that now is where I think a lot of me saying that this Floyd situation is different for me. Because, prior to when those other killings took place, they never said anything like that. So now I know that they are paying attention. And so when I address that stuff with them, you know, man, it's not like, I try not to make it like, hey, sit down, we need to have a talk. Right. You know what I'm saying? So like one of the things, like we usually sit down at the dinner table and eat dinner. So those are times where I try to have those conversations with them. And, you know, obviously the older they get, you know, I try to like push the material their way. So like if they reading, you know, if I got something I want them to read, you know, I just pass it along. Or like at one point we were reading The Hate You Give. So just like stuff like that where it's just not like overtly in their face. Right. But they, you know, I want them to be aware, you know, like because it's a real thing, man. And I think just like you were saying, as far as this generation, I think they got the right energy, but you know, it's got to be channeled. So like you got to kind of, it's education, man. This is really I really hate we're not in school right now, because we can't have the conversations with those kids, man. Like my boy in Connecticut, they had a rally in the city he teaches in, and like they burning cars up and everything. He said he saw a clip on Facebook. He saw like 10 ed students. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So those 10 kids that he could have, you know, talked to at least. Right, you know, at least, hey, well, if you're gonna be out there doing this, like, this is why you need to be doing it. So, man, it's tough, man, and it's just like he said, man, it's a fucked up situation. Just like even have to talk to your kids about that, man. Like, it's certain, it's people out there don't have to do that. They ain't, you know, it's never gonna cross their mind. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm trying to choose my word. I'm not gonna choose my words. I've done it in class. You know, we've done, you know, I teach in sociology and psychology. I do have the luxury of asking questions that other classes can't ask when it comes to, you know, race and stuff like that. But I've asked my class, how many of y'all have gotten to talk before, you know, about how to interact with police, et cetera. And like all my black males raised their hand. Every single black male raised their hand. A couple black females. If they haven't heard it from their own parents, they've heard it, you know, from aunties or whatever it may be. Maybe one white student will raise their hand, you know. So like you're right, there's conversations that some people never have to worry about having. And it was interesting that, like Jay, you said that you had your son who's 9, my daughter, she's 8, about to turn 9, and you had him watch, you know, what's been going on the last couple of days, because I found myself trying to almost shield or hide them from seeing any of that. Like I will literally, you know, change the channel if they walk in the room, or mute it down, or, you know, hide my phone so they can't see it, because I don't know, man. Like, I think I'm trying to hold on to their innocence as long as I can. You know what I mean? So that they don't have to worry about this kind of crazy stuff and see that the world is as messed up as it is sometimes. But it's interesting that y'all said that. Y'all kind of helped me, both of y'all, just now, in how I should probably, you know, have that conversation with them. And even, like you said, Jay, just even though you say you've never been successful at having that conversation with your son, I think the fact that you've even had a conversation or tried and exposed them to it, you know, and giving them all those perspectives, I think that's important. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't call it a failure. I think it's just a hard conversation to have. Right. You know what I'm saying? Chance, what were you going to say, man?
In that, how you guys are talking about taking innocence, like, or taking it, like, yeah, taking innocence away from children. Like, so I've dated black women where I've just asked them, like, hey, you know, they tell me when they begin speaking to their sons about that, and my question has been, you know, I'm not a parent, so in my mind, like, I can't even fathom the idea of having the conversation. You know, like, it's one of those things, if you're not a parent, you'll never understand. Mm-hmm. I always like to ask anyways, like, you know, what if this wasn't like, if you didn't feel forced because of this, right? If this had never happened and it was just a normal, I don't even know what day it is today, Sunday day, like, in your personal opinions, like, when would you just be like, you know what, this is the age where
I'm trying to talk
when I actually need to, like, I have to have this conversation. I've never had to have I'm trying to think of how my innocence was taken away from me as a kid, and I don't even remember how I realized people were racist. I just one day knew, but I don't remember a moment. I don't remember someone sitting me down to talk about it. So I can't even fathom the emotion you guys have to make that decision to sit down and say, we need to have this conversation. I need to prepare you for something that you may not have experienced yet, but you will. And yeah, just how do you guys mentally, I don't know. I don't even know how to ask that.
Yeah.
I'll say this, man, like for me, you know, like it's kind of crazy, man, because my dad, you know, he passed, but he never really ever sat me down, but like he always said things that just kind of make you aware, like, and it's different too, because, you know, my dad, he was in school at South Carolina State when the massacre happened at the bowling alley. Like, you see the picture, like my dad on the front page of the newspaper. So like he, you know, my father was in the mix. And so like just different stuff, man. And I won't ever forget this, man. When I was like 18, 19, I first went to school and dating a white chick, and my daddy told me, he was like, man, he was like, you're still a black man in the South. And like, that was all he said. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, when you young kid, bro, like it wasn't even, I didn't think I was invincible, but like at the time, like, well, I'm at a school where like I can, you know, I'm on my own, I can talk to who I want to, right. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, it put things back in perspective for me, you know, as far as like how I got to carry myself, man. Right. And so like, it just kind of it made me be more aware of like what was going on when I was like away from my home. Cause you know, again, like he wasn't there at school with me. Like he couldn't do nothing for me. So, you know, in regards to that, like with him, but like with my daughters, like I try to like talk it out, because for one, you know, they're females, and it's, you know, man, they women, like you got to explain stuff to women. So like, yeah, I mean, y'all know, like, so like even at that young age, you still like, you can't hit them with them one-liners, like they're not gonna understand. So it is just, man, it's crazy to believe that, man. And it's just, you don't know, like you said, man, it ain't like everybody not out here having these conversations, and not even just white people, like black people too, just because we like in a bind, like how do we bring it up? Like we just bring it up out of the blue, like, you know, or do we wait until something happens, or you know what I'm saying? Because it's a hard situation. So man, it's just tough. It's almost like a catch-22, man.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that he said, you know, you're a black man in the South, and you were what, 18, 19? When was that? 2000? About 2000, 2001, something?
About 2000, yeah. Probably like 05.
Yeah, 05, man. So it's kind of just when you put that in perspective, man, 2005, and
ain't that long
it's still,
ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago, but it's also when people always, you know, as a history major, the Amber Alert, as a history major, man, you know, I always not upset, man. You're probably upset when people don't realize how recent slavery was. You know what I mean? Like people would usually say something like, oh, well, slavery, that was so long ago. No, it wasn't. In the context of history, it is not that long ago. So to hear in 2005, you're a black man in the South, it still resonates. And I think a lot of times people miss that. People don't understand that, because they think, well, you had a black president, so, you know. But Jay, how did you, going back to Chance's question, like how do you decide that? Because being honest with you, Chance, I don't know how to have that conversation, man.
I mean,
there's no book.
It's different for everybody. I'm just wondering, like, because like I said, as you said to me, Marvin, like sometimes like the women I date, you're like, Chance, how did she pick you? I don't know, man. Like I don't know. So like I've seen it like the extreme, like they know they're foreign, they know, like, you know, very young, and me just not in like a, like just in a curious way, because, you know, there's a possibility that one day in my life, you know, I could have children with a black woman, and then I'm in that household too, like trying to have that conversation, and trying to, you know, wade my way through that, and you know, so it would be ignorant for me not to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's no. I always tell people there's no guidebook on how to parent, man.
Yeah. Just use life lessons along the way and introduce him when whatever he's mature enough to understand at the time.
Yeah.
I was talking to him, I mean, even with some of the protest stuff, it was just like, he's like, what they could do is they can have somebody fake like, and then the crowd will just, oh, you know what, it's enough for the night.
You're not ready. But yeah, man, like even like in like Chance, what you were just talking about as far as like black women. So, you know, I went to, you know, Columbia's right up the street from where I live. So I went to Columbia, marched to the State House yesterday. Everything was all good, you know, during the first part of the protest. Cool. So I left, and, you know, when everything started popping off later on that evening, you know, my mom's watching the news. She texts me, you know, stay your ass where you at. Like, you know what I'm saying? My mama's a 70-year-old woman, 30 plus year old man. My mama's still worrying about me in regards to that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, and, you know, I could sit here and say it ain't fair. No, it's not fair, man. But it's just like, it's the reality. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my mama going in her old age, and she still got to worry about me, a grown man, you know? So, like, it's just,
heartbreaking.
It's definitely different. Right, yeah, man.
Heartbreaking,
man.
man.
It's never a break, dude. It's like, never
I think the thing for me, my passion through all of this is, you know, what we always love to say, what's that say? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Mm-hmm. Well, America is an old ass dog. Mm. And even before we claimed our independence, this land and being run by colonists, we are past. I mean, we passed 500 years in this thing.
Since we first got 400.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not quite 500 yet.
Yeah, I mean, past 400. I mean, and the thing is we're trying to undo something that's been in the making for almost 500 years. Yeah. It's going to take half that time for people to take the undoing seriously. It's going to take the full time for there to be a full undoing. It's going to take half of the time on top of that to make it perfect.
Right.
But we lose time. Can we accelerate that time? Certainly. But we lose time in anything unproductive. I've been heartbroken over the divide in the Black community about handling how to address the protesting, because I think that's just us again falling victim to divide and conquer. I think the protests are inevitable. I think the rioting is inevitable. The looting is inevitable. They are a byproduct. Uprisings are a byproduct of oppression. Mm-hmm. They are what's going to happen.
Yep.
And as moving as that young lady, Tamika, I can't think of her last name, her speech is going viral. The reality is she didn't say anything that people weren't saying when Mike Brown died, when Philando died. She didn't say anything different from what Malcolm X said. Yep. The uprisings we're seeing are not anything different from the last riots and the ones before that, from the LA riots, from the Chicago riots, from the old Atlanta riots, both LA riots, Nat Turner's revolt. Mm-hmm. They're the same thing. You know, people say, well, knee didn't work. Neither did Nat Turner killing a bunch of white folks. We still were slaves after that. But it's not, but we understand and honor, not saying honor, we understand and we honor that moment in history because we have to understand that will always happen as long as the system of oppression is in place, whether it's overtly or systemic, as long as it's in place. And as black and beautiful as the city of Atlanta is, I was Wu-Tang, first time I went to a Wu-Tang concert down here in Atlanta, Method Man said, he said, I remember the first time back in 93 when that album dropped, we came to Atlanta, I was amazed. He said, because I never saw this many successful black people. He said, the other thing that really blew my mind, the thing that had me tripping, yo, all the cops is black here. He said, yo, all the cops is black. He said, that bugged me out. And so that does make Atlanta, our police departments operate a little bit different from the rest of the police departments. But I will tell you this, even a black-run police department, even with a black mayor, and even with the coolest white chief or even a black chief, policing in America by nature is a system. It is the hand of the systemic racism oppressive system in America.
Yep.
It is the hand of it. So even the blackest run police department, I'm telling you from being on the inside, it's still, even when it's got a black chief and almost an all black command staff, how it's run, because here's the thing, the chiefs answer to the city council put in place by the haves.
Yep.
So when the haves say, we need that nigga moved, your black ass police chief better make sure that them niggas is moved.
Yep.
It is still, no matter who runs it, policing by its nature. Patrols by, like I say all the time, patrolling by its nature was established to enforce the black codes. Back in the Jim Crow day. That's what, police didn't patrol until then. That's what introduced the concept of patrolling in America. So, but what I can tell you this also from the inside, when you think of the bad guys, the quote unquote bad apples, the oppressive sits from the top all the way down to the bottom, to the hand of it, the oppressive officer, to the group of powerful white people behind the curtain that we can't see. They are not shaking in their boots watching these buildings burn.
Oh, hell no.
The reality is they go build a whole new city and a whole new world and leave us behind. They are not shaking in their boots at what's happening. As to quote Andre 3000, while we ranting and raving about gas, nigga, they made them gas. They got some shit that'll blow out our back from where they stay at. They are not scared, but when they do shake in their boots, when we get in positions of influence. They hate it. That's why when Keisha Lance Bottoms was, before she even ran for mayor, when they came down to her, it was Mary Norwood, when it came down to them two, the whole nation was watching that. I had my cousin in Seattle telling me, man, we watching this thing. Stacey Abrams losing to Kemp was one of the most pivotal moments in African-American politics, period. Her losing, if you still want to say she lost, it let the world know this place that used to be a red state, this place that still flies a Confederate flag, something's changing there. They just announced last week that Georgia is now considered a swing state for the presidential election. Georgia, a swing state. Let that marinate. That's why they're like, we got to make America great again. What they're saying is we got to make America ours again because we're about to lose it. Every day they're dying. Every day, millennials, these people that we see out here in the street protesting, they're being born every day. That's the sign of new America coming. It's our responsibility to make sure we guide them correctly. But that's the new America, and that's what they're most afraid of. Everyone understands how to attack America except for us. Russia took control of an entire presidential election without sending one missile, one bomb, one bullet, one bottle through a window. Seized an entire government election because they understand the power in infiltrating the system and tearing it down from the top down. Horrible example if you take me out of context, but if you look at the analogy. The first time they tried to bomb the World Trade Center, they did it from the basement. The basement and the parking garage is on the outside of the two buildings and at the bottom. They figured out if you fly a plane into the building at the top, it will bring the rest down. What happens in the physical realm is also true in the ideological and the spiritual. So that's where our focus has got to be, getting in at the top, and that's how we tear that system down. And even then, That's not an overnight thing. But that's not to discount what goes on in the ground, because what's going on in the ground is information. It's intel for what we need.
Yeah. I was thinking about it today, that the looting and the destruction and all that, what it actually really does. Because all those businesses, those Nordstroms, those vans, and all that stuff, they all got insurance on that.
They got insurance, bro.
They gonna get that back plus some more. They probably get some money for some shit that they already have broke in their stores. You know what I mean? Right. Like now they're gonna get that money too. They're gonna recoup.
But the independently owned businesses may not recover.
And there it is.
In Atlanta, a lot of them are black.
And there, that's what I was getting ready to get to, is that the big businesses. So when we go and we riot Nordstrom and all this stuff, we think, oh, we showing the man, we gonna take their stuff. They're gonna get that back plus. But it's that small business owner that's gonna lose out on this, because they can't afford to get that kind of. They're not gonna have the securities that those big businesses.
They got to come up with the deductible to file the insurance policy. Then they got to replace the inventory. Then they missing a month or 2 months or 3 months of sales.
Right.
If it's anything like when my house was broken into, and I had to send off all the items that were stolen, and then State Farm sent me back a list of the depreciated value of everything that was stolen. And I had to purchase a certain amount of things before they would give me my check. But one of the TVs that was stolen, the depreciated value was $0. So if I bought a TV to replace the TV, it didn't count towards my deductible, because that TV at that point
wasn't worth anything.
So I ended up not getting any money. I did get money for the repairs on my home, but I didn't get any money in terms of items lost, because I didn't have the money to replace the items, because I had to pay the deductible.
Exactly.
Repairs done.
Hey, real quick, and I want to honor y'all's time, because I know, Jay, you got something going on. Just two real quick questions, man. The first one is, because Will, you kind of mentioned conspiracy theory, so I got one for you. And I don't even know if this one's even a conspiracy theory, because I wholeheartly, I don't know. Let me just throw it out there, man. The agitators for all these protests. A lot of people.
Ain't no theory. That's real.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. A lot of people have been saying that these are just undercover cops, or not even that, but just people who are anarchists who they know the blame is going to go toward the black community, whatever it may be. Y'all with that? Like, do y'all agree with that, or what's going on?
Well, Trump has today declared them
Antifa.
Yeah, the terrorist
Antifa?
group. But it's not just them, because there's two of them out there. There's some working against the Republican side, and there's some working for that are extreme. There's some extreme conservatives, and there's some extreme liberals. The extreme conservatives want chaos to ensue, and we be blamed on it.
Got you.
The extreme liberals, those are the true anarchists. So like you look at Minnesota. Right when the country's about to do a record number of mail-in ballots, they had 3 post offices burned down. And what voter graphic is in Minneapolis? Central.
Is that black folks?
Yeah. Well, generally, the metropolises are blue.
Yeah.
They ain't about to burn that. So those are the 3 post offices get burned down? You know what I'm saying? One of them wasn't even near the protest sites.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And everybody got to do an absentee ballot in these elections. Come on, bro.
When I see people on Facebook talking about something, burn it down. I'm like, yo, be careful what you subscribing to. Be careful what you signing on to, because the people that you're cheering on, they have an agenda, and it ain't yours. It's theirs.
And they done. It ain't even tricked you, dog. It's like, if you take a step back, just like look at the bigger picture.
Right. My man, they're not even tricking us. It's just you got to step back and look at it. It's not even a trick. And what hurts my heart is that they get on it because it's like emotionalism. I'm gonna say this, and I really got to go. One of my spiritual fathers, he told me, he's like, man, we used to run this. We had this church that had a funeral home. We always host funerals. That's how the church make money. Host the funerals for people. Even if they weren't at the church, whatever. He said, there's one guy, he would show up, and we had a funeral just about every Saturday, or at least every other Saturday. He said, this one guy, he would show up to every funeral, whether he knew the people or not. He was a professional griever. He said he was sure enough, everybody might be sitting there just fine. and he'd get that family stirred up. Starts carrying on. Next thing you know, the whole sanctuary laid out, tears. People that showed up feeling fine. And he talked about that's emotionalism. Sometimes when you're in church and everybody catch the Holy Spirit, it would take about 2 or 3, and everybody else is like, you get caught up in the moment. Yeah. So down there, you have a bunch of people who are ready to get caught up in the moment. And what these people are doing is they're stirring up our people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Y'all notice every city that was on fire last night wasn't the cities that was on fire the first night, and every city that's on fire tonight wasn't on city the first 2 nights. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia was fine Friday. Philadelphia went up in flames. Philadelphia and D.C. were fine Friday. They went up in flames tonight. Last night, the last 2 nights, Chicago was fine. Now Chicago's up in flames. Y'all don't know what's happening?
They traveling, huh? They get in their cars and they travel.
They done planted them, bro, because they steps ahead of us, man, in the game. It's so crazy, man. Like, and what's so crazy to me, man, is the master agitator is the leader of our country, man.
Yep.
That's what's so crazy to me. Like,
I told Chance,
how can you be the leader of the country and he's spewing hate, bro? Like, it ain't nothing else, dog.
I told Chance earlier, in times like these, we look to the president to be our moral leader.
And he sucks.
So just think about that, man.
Solid,
but hey, real quick, I know Jay got to get off. So let me say this, and Chance, I'm sorry, I know you got something else, but
I got a question. We can you know what? We can just record a small clip on my question that I want to ask, so Jay can get out here. Still have time. We can do it another night.
I was gonna say, like, first off, I want to thank y'all, gentlemen, because truly, for me, I don't know about any other viewers, you know what I'm saying, but for me personally, it's been the most powerful conversation I've had on this podcast, and I appreciate y'all. Y'all got me thinking about even being a father, you know, with my own kids and stuff like that. So I appreciate y'all for that. But we do want to have y'all on again, you know, as we continue this thing.